Yeah, I watched some high school quarterbacks this week in the state tournament that I think would probably throw less interceptions than what happened on Monday night, but that's maybe a topic for another day.
I can help you with the center quarterback exchange back in my high school days, but
There you go.
there's a few fumbles that happened at the cost of that experience.
Yeah, it was ugly all around.
All right, let's get started. Good morning, everyone. Thanks for joining. This is our weekly Fire Up webinar as we continue to bring leading edge technologies to the farmers in the country through research and proven results. I want to just say that, let you know that Newfields Ag's created a new product category called BioStax, which will contain products that create synergistic performance, convenience for our customers, and per acre savings along with those things. Nutriquire plus dust plus Terrasym 450 for corn, and Nutriquire plus dust plus Terrasym 401 for soybeans will be a part of that BioStax category of leading edge products that will join the rootworm product that we talked about last week. I'm proud to announce our continued partnership with Yieldmaster Solutions in bringing a couple of these new products to market. With us this morning is the National Sales Manager for Yieldmaster Solutions, Josh O'Brien. Good morning, Josh, and thank you for joining us again this morning.
Thank you, Bob. I appreciate the introduction, and as always, appreciate the invite to be able to share the excitement that we have over here at YMS with your dealer group today. So, well, without further ado, we'll go ahead and get started here. I do want to touch a little bit on what Bob had said on this whole stacking component here. So today, some of this information is going to look very familiar to you because essentially what we're doing here is we're combining three really great technologies. The Terrasym 450 and 401, which you guys all have some familiarity with and have seen some of the fire ups on those. The dust product, which obviously we know how advantageous that is as a carrier and some of the benefits that has in the soil when we use that as a carrier. And then last but not least, our Nutriquire product, which traditionally has always been a liquid product. So when Brian and Michael approached us, I don't know, 18 months ago or so with this concept, we were really excited about it. We knew that the biological package in Nutriquire would complement the PPFMs and vice versa. And then we knew that missing piece was the dust component that would make this all kind of work together in a synergistic way and allow our products to coexist. So I want to take you just on a brief journey here before we get started with the actual product training on just how we got to this point with this product. So we have obviously tested Nutriquire by itself. We've obviously tested Terrasym 401 and 450 by itself with the dust. So we knew that individually they were great products. The question we had was, what's the survivability of our Nutriquire once we take it out of the liquid form and put it in and spray dry it with the dust? So that was step one. And what we found was the CFU count in that product was equally as high as what we would expect on the liquid, but was maybe more encouraging and more exciting was when we sent that dust Nutriquire to our biology lab in Oregon and had it tested. What we found was that the actual CFU count grew by tenfold in a matter of 24 hours after it was incubated. So what this told us was not only was the bacteria package inside of the Nutriquire surviving, but with the addition of the dust as the carrier, it was repopulating at an incredible rate within just a few short hours. So that gave us the confidence to take that to production and to the next step, which is what we're going to talk about here today, and a lot of the excitement that we have around this product moving forward. So, as I mentioned, we're essentially combining two existing products on the market today into one product that's really cost affordable. So we have the Nutriquire product, which will be the first little part of the presentation here, and we'll focus a little bit more on some of the benefits Nutriquire has kind of directly on the seed. In the past, you may have heard some presentations where we talk a lot about the foliar in-furrow applications of this liquid product, but today we'll try to focus a little bit more on the seed side of it. But for those of you that aren't familiar with this product, some of the key benefits that we have with the Nutriquire is it does a phenomenal job with unlocking tied up phosphorus and making potassium from the soil more available for plant uptake. We do increase the active biomass in the soil, which is just a fancy way of saying that we create a bigger root zone, bigger root system. We do improve plant vigor and some of the carbon cycling process that occurs below ground to help us with that plant vigor improvement. And we do help when you apply additional synthetic fertilizer, whether that be NP or K or even some of the micronutrients. We can help convert that to a plant usable form quicker when the Nutriquire product is in the soil, particularly around the root zone. And last but not least, probably one of the biggest benefits that we've seen over the last couple of years with this product is this idea of creating a cone of protection around the seed due to competitive exclusion. So we're going to talk about these kind of more in depth as we go through the presentation here. This will be kind of the first half of the presentation. And then the second half, we're going to focus on the second part of the product, which is the Terrasym 450 plus dust if we're using it for corn, or the Terrasym 401 plus dust if we're using this for soybeans. So I do know we have some experts on the line here today that I will interact with and ask them to chime in once in a while, as I'm a big fan of if you have people that know more about a product than you do, let them speak. So Michael, be on alert, Brian, be on alert, and Bob, be on alert. I may call you in once in a while through the second half of the presentation here. But for those of you that have not heard of the Terrasym 450 plus dust or the 401 plus dust, which I think there's very few of us now, this product contains unique strains of beneficial microbes called PPFMs. These PPFMs, and this was news to me when we had them in our office a few weeks back, apparently there's over 12,000 strains of these PPFMs. What the exciting part is that New Leaf has gone to the effort of figuring out which strains are the most effective in corn production and in soybean production, and dwindling that 12,000 plus number down to the exact strains that we want to utilize as we continue to move forward with this technology. So that was a huge accomplishment on their part. Kudos to them. It does improve soil nutrient uptake. It allows for greater iron and manganese uptake. This is something that we talk a lot about over at YMS, particularly on soybeans, is that ability to improve the iron uptake. We live in a lot of IDC country, iron deficiency sclerosis country up here in the upper Midwest. So that's a big deal for us. We'll get into that a little bit later. The easy planter box application, the fact that we can use the dust as the carrier and be able to apply this, and the survivability of the bacteria for not just 2 or 3 days, but up to 100 to 120 days. That's a huge advantage for us as we're utilizing this product in the planter box. Obviously, it's a cleaner, safer replacement for talcum graphite. I think everyone on the call has understood that benefit when you're utilizing the dust product compared to talcum graphite. We do promote, it does promote early plant and root development. And one of the big things we saw this year is improved stress mitigation within the plant. So essentially what we're doing, guys, just to kind of, not to beat a dead horse here, but we are combining these two technologies, or these three technologies, into one really affordable product. So that's what we're going to go through here today. So let's start with the Nutriquire. Again, some of this is going to be a refresher for some of you, but I think it's worth noting again why Nutriquire for us has been such a positive product. And I want to start with just the production process of this product. It takes over 10 months to actually grow this product in a cold fermentation process down in Texas. So it has to go through a lot of the heat, the drought, the rain, the dust, the wind, all of the things that natural bacteria would have to go through to survive. And we start with a full seed community. And the reason that's important is the bacteria learn to commingle. They learn to live together first. And when you can do that, the analogy I always use is like having a small community of people, right? If you have a village of 2,000 people or a town of 2,000 people, and 1,900 of those people are firefighters, well, you're going to have a very safe town when it comes to fires. But chances are you're going to need some police officers, you're going to need some teachers, you're going to need some agricultural workers, you're going to need people to bag groceries, you're going to need all these other important things that help a community thrive as one. And that's really what we do with this product is we bring a full community that has learned to already coexist. And over that 10-month period, the weaker of those species have died out. They've also started to create some organic acids and enzymes, which are kind of just a little bit of a freebie that comes along with the product. And the analogy that we always hear when it comes to this is it's like turning a zoo animal loose in the wild versus one that was raised in the wild. We raise our bacteria for this product in the wild. It's very aggressive and it's very high in the survivability rate. So here's kind of an example of spore forming versus live bacteria. With a live bacteria, you apply it to the soil. If you have certain stresses such as drought or extreme heat or chemical stress or whatever that may be, those live bacteria will die off, or some of them will at least, right? And that's normal, that happens. But when you have spore forming bacteria, one of the biggest benefits you have is the bacteria produce these spores, or think of them as little eggs. So as the live bacteria die off, one of the things that happens is those spores will hatch when conditions become ripe, and those populations will grow, and you continue that cycle over and over again. So think back to just a few minutes ago when I told you how we started this journey, and one of the things that we were really excited about was when we blended the Nutriquire with the dust and we incubated it, our bacteria numbers went up by 10x within 24 hours. A big part of that was we had a whole bunch of spores in there as well as the live bacteria. So we had a huge jump start when those conditions became ripe in the reproduction of the bacteria. So this just means that from coast to coast, from dry soils to wet soils to everywhere in between, low C, C, high C, C, whatever those conditions are, that these bacteria are going to survive, they're going to reproduce, and they're going to thrive. Very versatile product. It also means that we can mix it with a lot of different things, which is a great situation as well. So again, the biggest thing that we've noticed with this product is its ability to solubilize phosphorus, which I know nitrogen gets a lot of attention, which it should. It's the most critical macronutrient in corn production, but I'll tell you one thing, phosphorus is not far behind it. And if you're tied up on phosphorus, there is some dramatic issues that can occur. So here's some examples of a low pH and a high pH soil system. On the low pH, what you're going to see is phosphorus wants to bind to a metal, whether that be iron or aluminum or some other form of a metal. On the high pH situation, phosphorus wants to bind to calcium, sometimes potentially zinc. So what we're able to do with the bacteria in this product is we introduce these specialized microbes to the soil. They will emit different organic acids and enzymes that will locally help neutralize the pH around the soil colloid. And once we can do that, if we can neutralize it just enough, we can kind of break that bond of that phosphorus and get it into the inorganic stage of phosphorus, which is where we want it for plant utilization. So the idea is that we make it inorganic long enough that the root system can intercept it and utilize it for growth. At some point, it will tie back up again. It's not a silver bullet. This is not a replacement for good management practices by any means. But what we do is we allow you to maximize the amount of phosphorus you can get out of that acre on any particular growing season while you're practicing those good management practices there. So this has been probably one of the biggest benefits that we've seen with the Nutriquire product. The other one we talked about a lot is the competitive exclusion. So I mentioned earlier in the presentation that we're going to dial into the seed side of this versus just more the general Nutriquire side. This is a big part of the seed treatment side. When we talk about putting the Nutriquire with the dust and putting it on the seed, there's a huge benefit that comes from this competitive exclusion. So this rule of nature is essentially that two species competing for the same resource cannot coexist. Right. So if we have, in this example, we use little hamburgers as a food source. we have negative pathogenic bacteria. They want to thrive in that rhizosphere or in that soil system just as much as our beneficial bacteria do. Our goal is to stop them from reproducing, like you see here on the screen, where they start getting out of control and they start taking over that rhizosphere. We want to introduce our beneficial bacteria that have the ability of consuming that food source maybe more aggressively, maybe quicker. And if we can do that, then what we can start to do is starve out some of that negative pathogenic bacteria. And hopefully what we start to see is that we start seeing repopulation of the beneficial bacteria. So we can literally start starving out some of those bacteria that cause some of that issue later on in the season. So some examples of that, we have third-party data now out of Kansas that has shown a 21% reduction in fumonisin. And fumonisin is a type of fusarium, and it's a fungi that's a negative pathogenic fungi. So we have some data that would suggest that this competitive exclusion process is becoming really effective as a way to kind of help starve out some of that negative pathogenic pressure that may come in. So the second way that we look at this is through real estate, or essentially colonizing that root system. So again, that root system is like a all-you-can-eat Chinese buffet for negative bacteria. They all want to be there. Well, all bacteria, for that matter, want to be there because the root system is essentially giving off that exudate and that organic acids in the food that the bacteria need to reproduce. So they want to live there. They want to colonize it. Our goal is to bring in our beneficial bacteria to colonize that root system more aggressively, quicker, and take control of it so we can provide this front line of defense against some of that pathogenic bacteria that would otherwise take hold of that root system. So those are two kind of different ways that we look at competitive exclusion, but ultimately the end goal is the same, which is we want to try to keep some of that bacteria, the negative bacteria or the negative fungi, off the root. So let's dial a little bit into, why look at this as a seed treatment, or why put it on the seed versus, putting it down foliar? Because we've done foliar and we've done infra, and I'll show you data here in a little bit, and it's good. It's great data. But as you look at putting it on the seed, here are some kind of unique benefits that we're going to see with this product by putting it there. Number one, we're going to trigger that biological process, such as the development of the fine feeder roots, right? We activate that process quicker. We do encourage the sporulation and colonization of mycorrhizae fungi, as well as improve the nodulation of legumes. So what that means is that, go back to that whole community approach that I talked about earlier in the presentation. If we can make a community that thrives together more effectively, the other things in that community are going to thrive as well. So the analogy that our biologists, used to tell me on this was, think about taking a bunch of pheasants and dropping them off in the middle of a Target parking lot, right? You can keep putting pheasants in the middle of Target's parking lot, but the likelihood that they're going to stay there is pretty slim. And the likelihood that if they do stay there, they're going to survive is even slimmer. So what we want to do is put our bacteria into a situation to where the community is there for them to thrive, the atmosphere is there for them to thrive, and if we can do that, a lot of the other natural microflora is going to benefit from that as well. We can trigger the biological process involved in germination. So what we are seeing is more even germination, more consistent germination, and that kind of feeds into some early vigor. We have, albeit not done nearly as much research as other companies, we have seen a little bit of the induced systemic responses. Again, I would not, bang my drum on this particular thing. I think there's other products out there that do maybe a better job. The TS201, for example, is those guys have a lot more data and a lot more benefit at looking at that particular benefit structure there than we do. But we have seen some early indications that is happening as well. Again, that antagonistic defense against soil-borne pathogens, we talked about that through competitive exclusion and through some other mechanisms. You could Google some of the names of the bacteria in our label. There's a lot of white papers out there that will show you some antibiotic type defense mechanisms against those pathogenic bacteria. We are not a biofungicide, so I'm not, really allowed to talk about that part of it, but certainly do your own research there if you're interested in that part. We do create that first physical barrier on the root. Again, creating that kind of king of the hill mentality that we own the root system, and you're going to have to kick us off if you want to get on here. That's a big advantage. And then we do help with the immediate colonization of PGPRs to help solubilize nutrients for better and quicker uptake. So again, that goes back to the whole concept of, converting that additional NP and K that we're putting down into more plant usable forms quicker. All of these things are benefits that are going to happen if we can get it on the seed or very close to the seed anyway. So one of the things, I just want to take a minute on this. I'm not going to spend a lot of time, but we do get asked a lot of times about different products or different technologies out there. One of the ones we get asked a lot about is trichoderma. I'm a big component of trichoderma. I think there's a lot of benefit to using it. But if you look at the benefit structure of trichoderma and what it does, there's a lot of similarities on one of the strains that we have in our product called Bacillus subtilis. So they have similar benefit structures, albeit they may do it differently. So if you look at increased root production, both technologies will do it. Stimulating the crop immune system, both technologies will do it. Producing antibiotic acids and enzymes, both will do it. Enhancing the nutrient use efficiency, both will do it. And producing the growth promotion agents such as indolacetic acid, both will do it. So this is just a way to point out that while some products or some technologies certainly work in unique ways, doesn't necessarily mean that's the only way that the benefit structure is going to happen. So do a little bit of homework when you're getting pitched a product on the benefit that it can have, because I think you may find that there's other products like Nutriquire out there that can maybe deliver some similar benefits. So this is an example out of Minnesota, and looking at, now this was actually done in furrow, but the concept is the same. If we get it on the seed or near the seed early on in the life cycle, at this point at planting, we see dramatic differences on vigor in that early stand, all those types of things. So the bottom half of the field was 624-6 starter fertilizer with Nutriquire. The top half of the field was 624-6 starter fertilizer without Nutriquire. So, two things are happening there. One is obviously all the benefits that we talked about 2 slides ago on why use it on the seed are happening here, but also that conversion of that 624-6 to a more plant usable form was certainly happening as well. So get it on early, get it on the seed if possible. With the dust product, we think you're going to see some really nice early stage advantages with the Nutriquire. So I'm going to talk just a little bit about some data here. I'm going to start with just our normal Nutriquire liquid product, and then I'll dial it into what would be closer to the Nutriquire dust. So this was 2023. We had 4 states, 6 locations, and 8 trials out this year. We did, weather conditions for the most part, pretty hot, pretty dry across most of the territory. Some areas did see some shots of rain, particularly maybe late season rain in late July, early August. But overall, it was another really, really beneficial year. 75% win rate this year on the Nutriquire. We averaged 12.5 bushel. So we saw a really nice response with the product this year. But like always, one of the things we want to do is, snapshots are great and they give you an idea of how they work on a particular year, depending on the conditions. But we're trying to get to, the multi-year data sets. So as we look at Nutriquire on the 2-year data set now, the last 2 years, we have 18 trials across 5 states and 11 locations. It's very similar, guys. It's been a 72% win rate with a 10.7 bushel advantage there. So this thing has been extremely consistent. I will say that this data set is what we call our proof of concept trials. So these would be like 4-row replicated trials by 200 feet long, where we harvest it and it all goes through the weigh wagon. So very specific information. We have reams of data. In fact, I just got another one in yesterday that was like 8 different fields of Nutriquire, of grower side-by-side data, of field maps, all those types of things. That information will be in our trial data booklet coming out here in about a month, where you can look through different grower trials and see how it responded in different parts of the country. But for our purposes, we always present the proof of concept trials just because we know how controlled they were, and just that the data is accurate there for us. But here's where we kind of started looking at it differently. So we put it on the seed this year in our plots as well, as basically the same rate that we're going to be putting it on through the dust. Because what we wanted to see was when we isolate this directly around the seed instead of spraying the entire acre, what does that look like? And in 2023, this was our first year doing it. It was very, very similar to our foliar in-furrow data. So we had a 75% positive response with it. We averaged 11.1 bushels by putting it on the seed across eight different trials, 3 states and 6 locations. So this is telling us that just the Nutriquire dust component of this product, before you even get into the Terrasym side of it, this is the same application rate roughly that you would put down in that product. So huge advantage there by putting it on the seed. Soybeans, switching gears a little bit. So again, 2023, looking at just the normal Nutriquire liquid, we have 5 different trials out there, 3 states, 5 locations. I hate to even do this because it's not sustainable long term. But all 5 trials came back positive. It's a small snapshot. I know it's not 30 trials. If we would have planted 30 trials, I'll guarantee you we would have had some that lost. But again, my biggest thing is that late season potassium availability, I think, was the big piece of it for soybeans, and just helping overcome some of that early drought stress in terms of helping that nodulation and that biological process trigger in the soil, I think was a big advantage there. So we did average 5.6 bushel this year across the board on our trials here. So again, 100% win rate, that's not sustainable. Don't take that for gospel. We will lose some trials here. It just didn't happen this year. If you look at the 2-year data set, which is starting to get more realistic, even this I think is maybe a little inflated, but we had 12 different trials out there across 3 states and 7 locations, 92% win rate. Soybeans just love Nutriquire. It just seems to really help, and particularly in stressful years like the last 2 years that we've had, where it's been maybe a little bit drier than what we would have liked to see. So 4.2 bushel advantage across the board over that 2-year data set with the Nutriquire. This is the liquid in-furrow again. So as we take that down to the seed coat side of it, as far as actually putting it on the seed, again, small snapshot. We had 4 different trials out there this year. 3 out of 4 were positive. So that gave us a 75% win rate. 4 different locations. We averaged 3.7 bushel with the product there on the actual seed. Again, that would be a very similar rate to what you're getting in the Nutriquire dust. I do want to make one major caveat here on why the Nutriquire dust will be a lot better than just the way that we did it on the seed. We put the Nutriquire on the seed without a binder, without a food source, without anything else for it to have. When we put it in with the dust, we are going to have, again, think back to the beginning here, that instant availability of that food source that the dust is going to provide with the amino acids and the enzymes there. We're also going to have a lot better coverage on the seed than the way that we did it. So I would anticipate that when we put the Nutriquire in with the dust, these results, as far as the on-seed results, will be even better than what we saw with just the Nutriquire by itself. So really excited about the outlook here. And then this is just a third-party trial that was done. Some of you may have heard of a group called SGS. They're based out of Brookings, South Dakota. They have farms all across the Midwest, South Dakota, Minnesota, Illinois, different areas there. We had them put the Nutriquire on the actual seed at the same rate that you would be getting it through the dust. They did small block randomized trials. So, 3 different blocks, 20 feet long by 4 rows, and they harvested the middle 2 rows. And they did it as a competitor block. So they put other products in there. Now, this is not to shoot a hole in any other product, because I do think all 3 of these products that were in there are good products. However, for whatever reason, this particular year, the Nutriquire just it just rocked. I mean, we were 32 bushel ahead of the check, which again is not going to be normal. Um, you look at the quick roots, we're 30 bushel ahead of quick roots. Stardust C, which I think is a phenomenal product from Lalaman Plant Care, 10 bushel ahead of that product. So what we were seeing in our blocks, we were nervous about, well, is this just something that we're only seeing that other companies won't see? And we were very pleasantly surprised that the independent groups that we hired to go out and do the same research, we're seeing a similar result there. So this, you combine all this data that we've gotten over the last year, that's really what gave us the confidence to say, yes, let's move forward with combining this with the dust and isolating it on the seed. So that is the Nutriquire section of the presentation here today. I'm going to pause for a minute. I went through a lot of information and just see if there's any questions that we have on the first part of the product. And then again, as we get into the Terrasym part, I know we have some experts on the line here that are even better than I am at talking about these products. So I'll refer to them on some of these slides here, but I will open it up if there's any questions here, Bob.
Yeah, Josh, just to let you know, you've got Roger on the
Oh,
webinar as well. So
we've got even the better expert than the Newfield Ag guys. This is great. Well, I either put everyone to sleep or this was pretty self-explanatory, so that's great.
No,
but if you have,
Jared
go ahead.
Jared has a question, Josh.
Sure,
Josh, I always have a question.
that's good. I like that.
Thinking about Nutriquire both as a soil amendment, a seed coat, and as a dust product, is this a more applications more often is better, or once a year in some form does carries the situation?
Yeah, I think it's a situation that it becomes more financial than performance based. So we've had growers that have split applied in different ways. In the past, we've had growers do it in furrow and foliar both and have seen added advantages. I would say if it were me, if we're hovering around that $15 an acre range, I would probably pick one or the other. So I would probably do, depending on my situation, and this is a question we get a lot, is, well, when should I use Nutriquire Terrasym dust versus when should I use just Nutriquire by itself? And it depends on the farm. For me, if it were, if my pH is way out of whack and I load that farm up with manure every year where I know I've got some buildup going on there, or I know I can't really put a planter box treatment down for whatever reason, then the liquid makes more sense. But in most cases, the Nutriquire Terrasym dust is going to be, sufficient amount of product to cover you. The sales guy in me says, yeah, I would love for you to come back and hit it with a foliar application, and you certainly can. There's benefit to doing it, but financially, to add another $13, $14 an acre to that growing program, I just don't know if there's enough ROI to justify it. I would probably just stick with the Nutriquire Terrasym dust product and use that. I think between the three technologies that you're combining, there's enough benefit structure there to get you where you need to go.
We talked about using Nutriquire with a foliar application as a bit of a stress mitigation agent, if I'm remembering that correctly. If I'm putting it down with a dust inclusion, does that carry through to that situation as well?
Yeah, it does. It depends on which type of stress you're trying to mitigate. So, in the beginning, we talked a little bit about overcoming some of the herbicide stress. You're putting it on the seed, you're probably not going to do that. But when we blend it with the herbicide as a liquid product and we spray, particularly soybeans, for example, we can help that plant metabolize that herbicide a lot quicker and a lot more aggressively, so it doesn't ding it up as much. So you get out of that yellow shock that you would see typically on a herbicide. So you're not going to get that full advantage. You may get some of it. We do have some endophytic strains in here that will survive in the plant, but if that's your main focus is, hey, every time I go out and spray beans, they turn yellow and I just can't get them to come out of that shock quick enough, then yeah, the foliar app's probably a better use. But other than that, putting it down closer to the seed in our opinion is the better way to go. questions? Okay. Well, this is going to be fun. I'm going to give a PPFM presentation to the experts at PPFM. So if I trip up too much, guys, you don't hesitate to jump in, correct me, and if there's things you need to add on here, by all means, feel free to jump in here. But a lot of this is going to be review from previous presentations that you've seen. Again, this is not our product. This is New Leaf's product, and it's a phenomenal product. We just do our best to go out and represent it. So I'm going to give you the presentation here as from our opinion as to some of the highlights that we see with it. But Roger, Michael, Brian, if you guys and Bob, if you guys see some other things you want to add in, by all means, let's do it. So what are PPFMs? Pigmented facultative methylotrophs. That's a full name. You can see why we call them PPFMs, right? But some of the key things that I like about it is they're natural. They exist in your soils already. We're not introducing a GMO bacteria. We're introducing something that would already be found in your soils. Again, I mentioned earlier that the great thing that New Leaf has done is they've just dwindled it down from, the 12,000 plus species to the most beneficial species that would benefit corn or soybeans. And they've basically concentrated that. So that is a big advantage for us, is that, yes, they may be naturally already found in your soil, but we're bringing a population of the most beneficial strains of it to your plant in higher levels there. They do colonize all crops, so we know that their survivability and their ability to colonize is very high. And then it does stimulate the plant in a lot of different ways, which you'll see here throughout the presentation. So just some highlights on how PPFMs work. Again, you may have seen some of this information, but as a broad plant colonizer, PPFMs spread across the seed surface and across the plant's roots and leaves. So basically, they're going to colonize everywhere systemically. But this is the big one to me that sticks out. And as New Leaf was presenting this to us, this is something that was kind of an aha moment for me, which was that they consume methanol, right? So if you think about this, a lot of other strains of bacteria, there's a give and take here that, hey, I'm going to give you some advantages, but I'm also going to take a little bit from you too, which in most cases, as long as the good outweighs the bad, you're okay in that. PPFMs are really unique in the sense that they just kind of have a give advantage. They don't take a lot. So they're basically going to consume the methanol, which is a byproduct that the plant creates, as their food source. So we're not stealing any, important carbohydrates or sugars or those types of things or energy away from the plant that it needs. So I think that if I'm looking at this slide, that's the big take-home message to me, is that this thing is all benefit. No negative there. Nutrient uptake, we're going to talk about that a little bit deeper. We talk a lot about particularly the micronutrient ability to bring up more micronutrients. And then root establishment. This is something that our agronomy team really talked to us about this year, is the fact that, the analogy I think that was used was there's just a heck of a lot more straws on the plant, right? So if you put more straws on the plant, you're sucking up more water, you're sucking up more more micronutrients, all of that. We were digging roots this year, and it was just amazing just to how many more fine feeder and primary roots that we were seeing on the plants there. So really, really interesting technology here, considering that we're not taking any energy away from the plant. One of the things our group focuses a lot on, and again, for some of you, this may be important. For some of you, maybe you don't battle this, but if you look at the little map over here on the right-hand side, you can see particularly Minnesota, Iowa, the Dakotas, soybean iron deficiency chlorosis. So the reason that even if you don't suffer from IDC, the reason this slide is important to you is it just shows the ability of these PPFMs to help with overall micronutrient uptake. So again, these bacteria are releasing these siderophores or this molecule that essentially will bind to iron and other micronutrients, and then it allows it to be taken up by the plant a lot more efficiently. So kudos to New Leaf for doing the research in this and showing hard numbers on just how much more iron they're able to take up into the plant. I believe here you can see it's an average of 19.4% more iron in the leaf tissue.
I don't think we've looked at anything a long term, and most of the effects, because this is colonizing the roots, they're strictly on the surface of the roots. They're not affecting the entire soil. So we affect the pH and the iron availability right next to the roots, but it's not a long-term effect for that field.
Right.
But like I said, it's not a silver bullet. It's not a quick fix. It does make it more available simply because of the siderophores they're releasing can reduce that iron. But like I said, it's another tool to use, and it's one that's fairly cheap compared to the competition, and does a fairly good job.
Yeah. The other question we get a lot, and this is kind of fun for me, guys. I don't get to do this a lot where I'm presenting, but also learning at the same time. The other question we get a lot, Roger, and I'd be curious to your knowledge on this, is oh, now I'm having a brain fart. What's the CHS product where they spray for iron?
It's not soy green, is it?
Soy green, yeah. How what is your opinion on, do we replace soy green when we use this, or is this a complement to soy green? What's your guys' research or your messaging been around
We
that?
actually have a slide from Beck's. Now this is from Beck's, own work, like this slide you're showing right here. It shows the return on investment compared to soy green and another product with soy green. I will admit they're good products and they out yielded us, but our return on investment for the acre was $12. The soy green was like maybe a penny, and the soy green plus the additive was a minus $10, I believe.
Gotcha.
So they are good products, but we're priced better for return on investment. It's a lower risk option for the farmer to go out there with, and we get additional benefits from the PPFMs that you don't get from the soy green. They're looking at iron. We're looking at iron uptake, but we also have the plant vigor and the nutrient uptake and the root growth that we see on the plant. So it is a good product. I will say that. It's just, like I said, it's return on investments, what the farmers should look at as well.
Yeah, that makes sense, right? If you're spending $30 to get 1.5 bushels,
Exactly.
That makes sense. Yeah.
And that's Beck's numbers. Those aren't
Right.
ours. You can go to their website. We've got a slide for it, but if you want to see it from the source, it's from Beck's.
Perfect. No, thank you for that, Roger. So this is where I'm actually going to bring in Michael, the other expert on the call here, because this is something that really excited me, was the ability of getting coverage on the seed. So that was one of the concerns we had when we were combining these two products is, well, yeah, we know that if we can get it on the seed, it's going to be really effective, but what does that coverage difference look like? So Michael, I'm sure you've gone through this before with this group, but if you don't mind, just for my purposes, do a quick refresher for us here on the traditional product application on the left versus the planter box application on the right, what these numbers actually mean.
Yeah, so what's real important here is the idea that with the research done on the PPFM, there was research done to show that the dry application of the microbe versus even doing the liquid on-seed treatment that was offered for a period of time from New Leaf Symbiotics is showing that we actually get a much higher CFU count, colony forming unit count there. And so we can be assured that when we're going with the dry application, that we get a high enough count to get efficacy for the product and for it to grow. So that's just a simple illustration showing the difference between using potentially a liquid seed treatment or the dry seed treatment.
Michael, would you assume that translates over to other products that maybe have liquid seed treatments or the ability to be utilized with dust as a dry treatment? I mean, would you assume that's going to be a similar result?
Well, yes, because and maybe we split the decision a little bit. When you have spore formers, they're not as easy to kill as something like these microbes that we find that take a little more care, like the PPFMs, and there's other microbes out there. One of the researchers has told us that 75% of microbes that are sitting on the shelf are hard to get off the shelf and put into a product because of safety. And that's the beauty of the dust product in terms of how we can help with a safe application and movement to the seed. So our confidence factor goes up. We're not having to ship liquid. And so we see in many cases that the microbe numbers improve and are better. And like you mentioned earlier, you even saw with that dry product in your research at the lab with that stimulatory effect of carrying it in the dust product that your counts just went way up very quickly from a colonization standpoint. So this helps with life on seed because we're not mixing with another fungicide or insecticide. For instance, when you're putting it in the seed treater. So we just see it as an extra safer option for you to go to the seed and to the soil with.
Yeah, no, I would agree. And this is a powerful slide for us. This is, again, another reason why we were so excited that we were getting the data that we were getting on the liquid seed coat, knowing that, hey, by spray drying it with the dust, our anticipation is that that's even going to be a greater response due to everything that Michael just said there. So thanks, Mike, for chiming in there. I appreciate it. And then this is just another one that basically tells the story that they tested it, 20% of planting, 50% of the way through planting, and 80% of the way through planting. And again, at all levels of planting, the numbers were staying consistently high. So one of the concerns is, well, am I going to get all the bacteria on the first 20% of the ground I plant, and then there's none left for the rest of the field? Kudos to the folks at Dust and the folks at New Leaf for doing the testing here to show, no, it does stay on the seed all the way through planting from the first acre to the last acre, because that's important, right? We want consistency throughout the field here. So great job there, guys. So as we look at our data set with the Terrasym 450 plus dust. So this is without any Nutriquire. This is just straight Terrasym 450 plus dust. Roger's probably going to kick me underneath the virtual table here because our numbers for the last 2 years with this product have been phenomenally good. And I know I don't want to set an expectation for them that is maybe not what their numbers suggest, but what I can tell you is the last 2 years that we've had this product, we've had it in very stressful situations. We've had it in very hot and dry situations across the upper Midwest here. And the response has been, I think Roger would maybe agree, above normal on what you would typically see. Although, Roger, I'm hearing that you guys are seeing some pretty dramatic results this year as well. So maybe it's not just us this year. Is that kind of what I'm hearing?
No, it's not just you, but I do see a higher response to biologicals. The further north I go, the further south I go. So some of it's just your environmental conditions. You're getting a better response out of the product. Yours is above our average, I'll admit.
Yep.
But we're having a good year on it, but your results, your area, your customers where you're dealing with tend to get a better response out of this product than we do in Southern Illinois or Indiana.
Yeah. So again, and part of that's just to our data points that we have too, right? If we had 500 data points, it'd probably start to look a little bit more like Roger's numbers. But we had 7 trials out this year across 3 states and 6 locations. So we got a pretty good sampling of it out there. 86% positive win rate on corn and 12.6 bushel per acre average on corn. So guys, you go back and you think about that number I told you on the Nutriquire on the seed. So remember, Nutriquire on seed this year was running 75% win rate with 11.1 bushel average. Now we're combining that with the Terrasym 450 plus dust, which had an 86% win rate with a 12.6 bushel average. I promise you are not going to get 11 plus 12 equals 23 bushels. I will guarantee you that's not going to be the result. However, those win rates are going to go up.
Well,
Go ahead.
Wimp. You're a wimp. You're a wimp for not stepping out there saying 23 bushel. That's all I'm gonna say.
Yeah. Well, if you get the 23 bushel, please send it to us. I'd be thrilled to see it. But what the goal here is, guys, is that we're addressing multiple limiting factors. So the idea is that, hey, if for whatever reason Nutriquire doesn't hit this particular year, Terrasym does, right? And vice versa. If Terrasym wasn't successful this year, Nutriquire was. We're addressing multiple limiting factors, so our win rates are going to go up. And the way I think about it is, like, you wouldn't put, I'm a big fantasy football guy. I think some of you have probably heard me talk football before. I wouldn't draft every one of my players from the Vikings, even though, they look really good, 1 week out of 16. Because if they have a game like they did against the Bears on Monday night, my fantasy football team is going to be pretty weak, right? So you wouldn't put all your eggs into one basket on just about anything you do. That's why you plant different hybrids. That's why you use different chemicals, all those things. What we're allowing you to do here is to spread your technology base at a very cost affordable rate. So if for whatever reason you fall into that 25% that didn't win with Nutriquire, well, maybe you hit it with Terrasym, right? So that's the goal. That's why we're combining these technologies. Our 2-year data set with Terrasym 450 plus dust on corn. We have 15 trials back to us now across 3 states, 9 locations. We're averaging 80% win rate with it and 9.6 bushels per acre over those 2 years and those 15 trials that we've done. So again, very high likelihood of success here with just the product. Terrasym plus 450 plus dust. You combine it with the Nutriquire on the seed. This thing is built, guys. This thing is built for performance. We're really excited about this. Soybeans, I will caution you, the smaller the data set gets, the weirder the numbers go. So 66% win rate on soybeans this year, but the other way to look at that is we had 2 out of 3 trials that were positive, right? So it's a really small data set this year. We're waiting on some trials to come in yet from North Dakota that take forever to get data for us. But 66% win rate so far. That number will go up. Don't worry about that. 5.2 bushel per acre average, though. So those 2 out of 3 trials that we won, they won big. We were really excited about that part of it. This is probably a little bit more the other way. We have 10 days, over the last 2 years, we have 10 trials out there across 7 locations in 3 states, 90% win rate. Right. So again, we're probably not going to maintain 90% win rate year after year after year. I would love to. Maybe we will. I don't know. But 5.9 bushel per acre advantage is what we're seeing. So give or take, guys, what we're seeing is north of 80% win rates with 5 bushel coming back our way on the soybean side. This thing with the Nutriquire on soybeans, with the win rates and the yield advantages that we've had on soybeans with Nutriquire on the seed, man, that's going to be a special product. These 2 technologies are going to work in synergy so well. I'm really excited about the future of this particular product line. So that's what I had as far as product information. I'm going to show you one last quick thing, then I'm going to open it up for questions, comments, and if anybody wants to chime in, by all means. But let me show one more quick thing. So we are in the process of putting an innovation center together for free to use for growers, dealers, customers, whoever wants to use it. So the easiest way to get to it is if you go to yieldmastersolutions.com. Under the About Us tab, you'll see the Innovation Learning Center. If you click on that, it'll take you to a site that looks like this. You can create an account by clicking this button down here and log in for free. And in this Innovation Center, what we have is 3 to 5 minute modules of all of our products that you can sit and watch. They're interactive. They'll have questions throughout the module if you want to answer them and see how high of a score you can get. That'd be awesome. We also are in the process of putting guest speakers in there as well. I know we've talked. New Leaf has presented to us with Dr. Allison Jack and Roger, and it was a phenomenal presentation. So we're going to slice and dice that and put it in there. We'll have just general basic agronomy modules in there as well. But the idea is that all of our products will have modules in here that you can sit and watch and rewatch with yourself or with growers, either way, and hopefully become more well versed on how they work and why they work. So just wanted to give a quick shout out to that because the marketing team's put a lot of effort into building this out. So Without further ado, I will stop sharing my screen here and open it up for questions. And go ahead, Brian.
There's a question in the chat. Jim had a question about adding this with mica gold dust. And then the question about putting Nutriquire dust and TS201 together. I'll take the 201 part. I'll let you take the mica gold part. 201 and Roger being on here can give us more background if we need it. But the 201 needs to be delivered this year. Once again, to stay in compliance with all of the regulations regarding a rootworm event type product, will be delivered with 450 dust and TS201 in a co-pack arrangement, not in a pre-blended arrangement. So due to that fact, for this season, it will only be delivered as a as in that particular vein. Will not be available to be added on label into a Nutriquire dust 450. Jim, I guarantee you that conversation happened, Josh, in May. We started looking at trying to figure out ways to do that because we, as a company, as Newfields Ag, decided that the Nutriquire product was something that we wanted to pursue in our dust lineup as well. And so being able to partner with Yieldmaster to do this and to bring the new leaf side of it together was a win. And so we're continuing to push for that. So I understand that as well. But for this year, unfortunately, no, 201 will not be able to be added to the Nutriquire Dust 450 lineup, or actually technically even to the mica gold side. So, but Josh, talk about the Nutriquire mica gold if you don't mind.
Yep. No, and so that's a great question. The 201, we were thinking the same thing. So, never say never in the future, but for this year, that's kind of the answer. And first off, I didn't realize, Brian, that we were painting portraits as backgrounds. So kudos to you for getting that great portrait behind you.
Thank you very much. It took me a while to get the cape just right in the wind, but other than that, I'm great. Yeah.
It does look a little less muscular than you in real life, but that's okay. We'll debate that another day.
Thank you.
As far as
it's actually Michael's body in my head, so just so you know, it's the way it goes.
Perfect. As far as the mica gold goes and combining this, we have not explored that yet. But as all things happen, we sit down with Brian and Michael and say, hey, what's the potential of this and what's the potential of that? So if there's demand for it and if there's want for it and if it can be arranged, then we're willing to come to the table with Michael and Brian and the Lomu Tech boys and say, hey, is this something we want to do? So I guess to be very blunt with you, we just haven't thought about doing that yet, but not that it couldn't possibly happen. I mean, obviously Michael Gold would have to buy into it as well, but again, never say never. If there's enough demand for it, bug the heck out of Michael and Brian, and we'll sit down at the table and talk about it.
Yep. And we are working with the mica gold group as well, moving forward, on new product innovations on that side as well. So we do that. One thing that I want to make sure you understand it as well is that this is a product that we are manufacturing that Lomu Tech is manufacturing for YMS and for Newfields Ag to be able to sell through our system. So it's not something that we just decided, hey, let's go throw these things together. It's a manufacturing process we go through because we know that we need to be able to maintain the CFU count, the like Josh was talking about, the efficacy per seed and for a season, and being able to blend in the soil amendment piece of it with Nutriquire and the endophytic side with it, and then put the endophytic PPFM with it, delivered with the dust, is a huge win for us because, like Josh said, you have early season performance and then you have season long by being able to bring the PPFMs and some of the other attributes of Nutriquire that show up as you go through the season, such as stress mitigation. So I see Jared's got another question. Jared, you have the floor.
Thank you, sir. Just wanted to ask if we could back up to some of the nutrient availability, mineralization, and such. I was thinking about Nutriquire with other bacillus species, phosphorus, zinc, iron, manganese, things of that sort, in terms of overlapping those products. Just
are you talking about as far as combining it with micronutrients? Or
well, like maybe putting one on as a seed treatment, Nutriquire on, dust on, things of that sort.
Yeah. So if I'm understanding the question correctly, are we going to get benefit on solubilization of the other things besides just phosphorus if we put it down on the seed? Is that kind of where you're going?
Yeah, something to that effect. Just one of those thinking out loud type moments because
Mhm.
we're getting a lot of these solubilizations
Right.
and so on, and they all seem to overlap on phosphorus, which I guess isn't always a
Yep.
bad thing, but we're solubilizing a lot of nutrients, and if we can capture it or with like a microgold product or
Yep.
any other mycorrhizal, something of that sort.
Yeah, so yeah, I do think there's benefit to stacking as well. Yeah, you're right. There are several products out there now that will talk about phosphate solubilization. Just like there's a lot of products that talk about nitrogen fixation, right? All of them do it in maybe different ways. That's maybe the biggest thing is, take Invita, for example. It's a nitrogen fixer, but if you compared it to other nitrogen fixing products, it's pretty unique. That's kind of how we feel about with the Nutriquire, what it's doing and how it's doing it and how effectively it's doing it makes it unique compared to maybe other products on the market that strictly focus on phos. But I think the biggest thing is, we didn't get into a full chemistry class on it today, but we do have some reducers and some other things in there. That was part of the reason why we wanted to partner with the Terrasym product line, because we knew that our iron reducers, for example, combining that with what Terrasym's doing to iron in the soil, that to me was like a 1+1=4 type situation. So yes, there is other benefits to the solubilization of nutrients besides just phosphorus. We even have some below ground nitrogen fixers in here. This does not fix nitrogen as well as Invita does. And well, I shouldn't say that. It doesn't fix nitrogen in the same way that Invita does, but it does fix below ground atmospheric nitrogen and converts it to more plant usable forms as well. So we are doing a lot more than just phosphorus. It's just that right now phosphorus seems to be the biggest advantage that we've seen with it. So it's a good question.
So there's another question from Jim for either you, Josh, or maybe Roger.
Mhm.
He's asking, will the MycoGold hurt the Terrasym Dust 201 if he added both into the planter box?
I'll leave that for Roger because that's out of my wheelhouse there.
Did you repeat that? Were you asking if you added them both together in the planter box?
Correct. Yeah.
I mean, legally that would still suffice if you're applying our product at that rate. But if you applied it at that rate, then you would have probably twice as much dust as you would want in the planter. That could cause an issues. The only issue we have with going out with Nutriquire at this point is our EPA label. We did not know in advance enough time to put that on the label, and it takes us 18 to 24 months to add that to, hey, we can go out with this product. It comes down to the actual physical properties of the dust and what you want to apply. If you have you'd be below the application rate. You might not get the response that you would want out of the 201, would be my concern. I wish we had a better solution for that for this year, but we were afraid to sell 201 alone because we believe it works better with the 450, but we've got to go back and look at that again and find a better solution. I just don't know if the half rate would, I'd be hesitant to suggest that and not get performance. Sorry.
Yeah, I would say if you're really interested in combining the MycoGold, because that's a great product. I mean, we saw it. It works phenomenal. If you're really interested in combining the MycoGold with the Nutriquire Terrasym Dust product, I would say let Brian, Michael, myself, and Roger go to the table there. I think there's components of the MycoGold product that are phenomenally good. And then I think there's other components in there that we probably maybe don't need to bring over because we already have the Nutriquire and the Terrasym in there. So my thought process, and again, this all comes down to MycoGold as well, they have to be at the table too, is that we would talk to them about cherry picking out some of the best components of that product. The Bovaria bassiana, for example, I think is phenomenal. Obviously the micronutrient package they have in there works really well. And the mycorrhizae fungi, I think, is really good too. Maybe cherry picking that part of that product line out. And then at some stage, if we did a Nutriquire Terrasym plus dust, we would just add those components in so you don't run into that issue of having too high of an application rate like we would if we, doubled up in the planter box with both products. So hopefully that makes sense.
Josh and Roger, I appreciate that. That's where I was going to go too. You just end up with so much volume of product in there that gets moved that you start ending up with, in some planter types, you can end up with some issues on flowability. And so it gets back to just a space issue of being able to move the product through the planter. So that would be our concern on the dust side as well.
I think the neat thing, though, in discussing this type of thing and bringing it to us, is that our three organizations are probably able to bring something like this to market faster than like a multinational. To make those decisions when growers tell us they're looking for something, we will look at it hard, and I think we can actually bring this to market faster than some of these large multinationals can do it.
Yeah.
So we will, some of these things we're already looking at. So any other questions for Josh, or Josh, another comment?
Yeah, I just want to comment one more thing. I think what's really exciting about where all this is going, and I gave a presentation, the same presentation to 4 different groups the last few weeks here, is if you look at the evolution of our company, and I think a lot of companies, Brian, your company is probably similar to here. We started off with singular benefit technology, which was basically we have one product that does one thing, right? And it was great. It did that one thing really well. And then we moved into, now we have a product that does multiple things. And that was like the next step, which we thought was really cool. But where we're going now with it is, now we're doing multiple products that do multiple things. And I think anyway, the farmer is looking at that option as like, okay, I'm ready to jump on board with this now, because in the old days, I had to try to guess what my limiting factor was going to be. And if I didn't guess correctly, then I was kind of SOL. But what we're doing here by combining products like Nutriquire and Terrasym is we're spreading that risk over so many different limiting factors that the likelihood that you're going to hit one is much, much higher than the old days of where we just had one product that delivered one benefit. And we're going to continue to investigate opportunities there. And that's why I think like the TS201 product, for example, with the Terrasym 450, such a great product, because if corn rootworm's your issue, you're going to have a phenomenal year with it. But if corn rootworm's not your issue, you're still going to have a really good year because of the 450 that's packaged in there. I think the more that we can go out to the countryside with these products that have multiple benefit strains to them and allow the growers to experience more success, the better we're going to be as an industry in trying to promote these biological products. So I'm really excited about the partnerships that we've been able to create with Brian and Michael and Bob and their whole group over there, and also with Roger and his whole group down there. So hopefully it's just the start of a really fruitful relationship with other products to come in the future.
Another question from Jared.
Yeah, so I guess kind of just piggybacking on what we were saying on the last two questions of going about this as a systems approach, because we can't get too much dust in the box, but we could put on, if I'm hearing correctly, Nutriquire maybe have a C code option in the future or something like that. And then we could run a Mycogold or a Terrasym 452S201. Am I hearing that correctly? Or
there's again, never ruling out anything. I think there may be a potential for a seed coat on the Nutriquire side as a program's approach. For now, I think we're very happy with the planter box option. I think that, as we're seeing more and more restrictions on being able to overcoat corn and some other things with liquids, I don't know long-term how viable the overtreatment market of corn is going to be. That's why we love the planter box option. But again, we'll never say never to it, and it's not certainly a possibility. But I like your idea there, Jared, of a systems approach, right? So if we do get to the stage where we have too much happening in one planter box, for example, if you wanted to use Terrasym 450 plus dust plus TS201, right? But you also wanted to use Nutriquire. Well, those are two different products for the planter box, and you're going to get too heavy of an application rate. But the beautiful part of it is you can use the Terrasym 450 plus dust plus TS201 in the planter box and follow up in furrow or foliar with the Nutriquire liquid, right? So there's these options that are out there, and that's really when Brian, Michael, and our group sat down. Really, what we were trying to achieve is how do we give the grower more options on how to use these products. So we feel like we've checked the box now on a lot of different ways to go about that systems approach And if the technology is out there that you want to use, we're pretty sure we have a way that you can stack it together to be able to use multiple products in the same acre.
Yeah, I want to echo that too, and Josh, I appreciate that. We have actively chosen to give the farmer options to be able to bring the technology to their farm and to their acre, rather than saying this is the only way you can receive this technology. A lot of stuff you'll see in the NFA catalog gives you the ability to do it planter box, or to come back and do it in furrow, or to do it foliar, or even do it with a seed treatment side. It just gives you flexibility with the products that we have and with the companies we've been able to partner with, so that we can look at that. Because we all knew that there were ways with this biological biotech micronutrient consortia that we're building that the corn crop would benefit from early on, and see some early plant health issues that would be helped. But how do we get it on there? And the overtreat market of corn, like Josh said, has always been the bugaboo. Nobody wanted to get out there and be the one that might cause some germination issues. And so by being able to bring it into the planter box, which we introduced with our dust product, that opened up the ability to actually deliver. And then by the testing that we've been able to see that we've done with New Leaf and YMS and other companies, shows that we've got season long performance with it, so that we can deliver it to the seed, get it into the furrow, and then the biology's biotech's micronutrients take over, and you start seeing it. So then you can build on it. Being in Iowa, the farmers want to see the crop come up before they do that next phase of it. And so by being able to put a system approach together and use our decision wheel that you've got for the all season part of that, now you're able to choose products that fit an individual grower's piece, rather than forcing them into, here's your product, here's your option. And that gives flexibility. And we know that farmers, this may be news to everybody on the call, farmers are very independent, and they want to make sure that they have options, and we give that to them.
Perfect. Bob, any other questions?
Nothing else in the chat box. Any other questions from anyone? If not, again, Josh, thank you for your time and your expertise. Nice job on the New Leaf portion. Roger didn't speak up too much, so it must have been all right. So
I was on my best
thank
behavior
you,
since Roger
everyone.
was on. Yeah. All right. Thank you,
Thank
guys.
you,
I appreciate the opportunity.
Yeah. Thank you, everyone, for joining us. Again, this is a weekly Wednesday morning webinar. Once you get registered, you will be invited to all of them. The plans are to do this all the way through the month of March. So thank you again, and have a great Wednesday.
Thanks, guys.
Hey, Josh.
Mhm.
As you start looking at these new products that y'all are testing in your confirmation trials and that type of thing, what are some of the criteria y'all are using to look at new products as you start looking at that, because you do that in relationship with your Legend Seed tie-ins with that too. So are you seeing some of the conversations that we're getting asked from the folks that were on the call and are still on the call here? They're asking, okay, so what is that next thing that we're going to be able to tie into, right? So what are some of the things that you're seeing as you start moving?